What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So as we've been getting closer and closer to Black Friday and Cyber Monday, more and more deals have been popping up online for Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. So today, I fear we go over some of those sales and pick out some of the better deals that you can find right now. Also, we are going to be talking about the Pokemon Company as they had a recent interview talking about feedback that they get for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and we'll also be talking about a Sony exclusive that's been really struggling recently, and now based on a new report, it looks like it might just be dead. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis. Now, this is a retelling of the Final Fantasy VII story, just on cell phones, kind of broken up into chapters. There's like a bit of a gacha system in there, as you'd expect for phone games, and despite all of that, people have been hoping that it would leave phones and at least go to other platforms alongside of it. Well, we know it is going to PC, and we can see this posted up over on Twitter. This from the official account, saying we're thrilled to announce that Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis has been published to Steam. The release date will be announced later, so please add it to your wish list and stay tuned. So they have the little link there for it, takes you to Steam. And looking at the system requirements, they're very low, as you would sort of expect it coming from a phone then to PC. Lower-end video cards, all this should be able to play it, which does make me wonder if maybe there would be plans for them to bring it even beyond that to maybe the Switch or the Xbox or PlayStation. This seems like a pretty big game for Square with a lot of the stuff they're doing, even full-on crossovers with other Final Fantasy games, so maybe that's something we could see even go beyond PC yet. But for now, the release date does appear imminent if they have the Steam page up and they seem to be getting everything in line. So I guess keep an eye out for that release date and you could technically then check it out on your PC. Also, it does appear that Immortals of Aveum, which is a game that came out from Ascendant Studios months ago and kind of got lost in the shuffle. We know it didn't sell very well and half the studio just got laid off afterwards. Appears that it is heading to, or at least plans are being placed right now for it to go to a subscription service, whether it's Xbox Game Pass or PlayStation Plus extras, premium tiers. And this was discussed in an interview with Windows Central and the Ascendant Studio CEO. They also gave reason as to why they think it didn't do so well, and that just had to do with 2023 being a very crowded time. Yeah, it is. And again, remember we discussed about how some of these studios and publishers are going to be leaning more and more on sequels or known properties. Well, Immortals of Aveum, that's a brand new IP. They took a shot at it and it did not work. So the more of those you see, I'd say the more and more you're going to have these publishers lean further away from these new intellectual properties, because the risk, it's just not worth it for them if they have really a series they can nearly run into the ground with sequels if they think that is a better way to approach something that could take 5 or 6 years to develop and then release. But hey, if anything else, you should see Immortals of Aveum pop up on Game Pass or PlayStation Plus, probably heading into the new year. Oh, and speaking of PlayStation Plus Premium, we know that there are game trials as part of the benefit list, which means you can try out the different games for an hour or two, and there's some big titles heading to PlayStation Plus Premium. Okay, in all seriousness, Baldur's Gate 3 is available for 2 hours, which means you'll get through the start of the tutorial's intro, basically. But, it'll still give you a chance to load it up, see how it looks on your TV visually, and get a grasp on some of the gameplay elements. And also, Lord of the Rings Gollum going in there. So, I guess it's an hour, so you can try that. Okay, well, Baldur's Gate 3 is there, so you go check it out and see what all the hype's about. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a bunch of sales that are currently live for Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. We're gonna start with Nintendo because they have their own cyber deals that they're doing on their website, and we can see that here. Now, this will be running starting now up until December 3rd at basically midnight there. But this is to go alongside of, yes, Black Friday and then obviously Cyber Monday with how it's titled. They say up to 50% on select games. However, as I was going through the list, some games are 80% off. There's some pretty good deals. Now, remember, these would all be digital purchases, but it might be a good way for you to spend some of those gold coins, maybe that you've just sort of accrued throughout the year. Typically, that's something I'd even recommend, is as you're going through the year and maybe buying digital games or registering your physical copies for coins, you save them up for around this time when some of these big deals happen. Anyway, starting from the top, we have Mario Odyssey. That's coming in at $40. I know it's funny because that came out the launch year of the Switch, but that's just how it is with Nintendo games. They always are basically full price, but still $40 there, first-party Nintendo game. We have Fire Emblem Engage, that one at $42. Red Dead Redemption, that one at $35. Bayonetta 3 at $42. Live Alive, $35. Definitely recommend that one if you want a very unique JRPG-like experience. Luigi's Mansion 3, probably still one of the best-looking games on the Switch now at $40. Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope at $25. Lego 2K Drive at $30, Sonic Frontiers $24, Dark Souls Remastered at $20, Persona 3 Portable coming in at $13, which I guess is a good way to kind of get acclimated to that universe ahead of the remake coming up next year. And there's Sifu at $20, Slay the Spire at $9, Doom Eternal at $10. That seems like a really good deal there. Also, .hack GU Recode. We talked about .hack potentially making a return with maybe the original 4 games, but GU Recode at $10, that's pretty good for that collection. Immortals Phoenix Rising at $9. Witcher 3 Complete Edition, $24 for a game that size. That's another good pickup. Mega Man 11 at $10, and then Mega Man Battle Network Collection at $40. Ghost Trick, $20, and Spyro Reignited Trilogy at $16. Certainly some really good deals here, and while they kind of just set it up so there's a select number that they show on the front page, if you sort of go through that and then look at the deals page they set up for categories where you just kind of scroll through, there are many more games than just what's shown on that front page. So definitely go through them and leave some suggestions down below in the comments, as while that's Nintendo games, we also have Gamefly, which tends to be kind of overlooked when it comes to some of these sales, but typically their games, you know what you're getting. It's not going to be a quote-unquote new game like you might see at, say, GameStop, but it still shows up open. They're very upfront. Hey, these are games that have been rented out and people have played them, but we've checked them to see if they're in good shape, and typically they are, and in this case, it appears they might have the lowest price right now on Final Fantasy 16, so I wanted to throw that in there. As you can also see on their site, they have a code currently for Black Friday. It's, let's see at the top, it's BLKFR23. They say that gets 10% off any of these games that will go over here, so I guess keep that in mind at checkout. You might as well. Any of these prices that I'm about to say, then take 10% off if you use the code they have there. Let's see, we have Final Fantasy 16, $30, so technically $27 then using that code. That's really good for 16. I liked 16. It seems to be very controversial in the Final Fantasy space, but I thought it was pretty fun. So yeah, I highly recommend that, especially if you can get it below $30, absolutely. Mortal Kombat 1, that one coming in at $40. Atlas Fallen, I still have not played this game. I still have not picked this game up. And I might here because it's close to $20 here technically then, while it's $25 again, minus 10%. Lego 2K Drive at $25. Jedi Survivor at $25. I absolutely recommend that at that price. It's gotten better with some of the patches and things they've done, and the core game is just really good. And if you enjoyed Fallen Order, you absolutely have to pick this up, at least see how the story continues. AEW Fight Forever coming in at $25. Need for Speed Unbound at $20. And then Tiny Tina's Wonderland at $15. Now, it's worth mentioning that as I was going through and checking out some of the deals and writing down games, they were coming in and out of stock. So some games may have been sold out when I was looking and I wasn't able to put them down and then come back into stock. So I would certainly keep an eye out on Gamefly's page here, their sales page, as we go along throughout the Black Friday, Cyber Monday weekend, because some games might come back in stock and they could be pretty low in terms of pricing. But definitely a lot of stuff to check out here, as well as with Nintendo's Cyber sale they have going on. And I might look into GameStops as well and just kind of give a rundown and pick out some, I'd say some pretty good deals from there as well. It's just a little dicey at times with GameStop because sometimes they'll advertise it as new, but then it shows up opened and it's like, okay, well, great. I thought I was getting it completely sealed. So maybe we'll look to some of their used stuff, since they tend to have like percentages off you can do, and then buy 2, get the 3rd free. So there's a lot of stuff you can do and play around with within GameStop's own checkout page to get some really good deals. Next up, let's talk about a Sony exclusive that appears to basically be dead at this point. And we had talked about this before, before multiple times with Knights of the Old Republic Remake. That was under Embracer and Aspyr, and we know they've just been going through it. There was a lot of talk around how apparently they showed a small bit of the game as like a vertical slice for a demo. Then a few days later, people just started getting laid off and fired, and the whole thing was then sent to Saber. Sounds like a mess behind the scenes, but now we have a bit of an update around the situation. This one coming from Jeff Grubb. We can see it transcribed here. This is over on Daily Star Wars Games, so you can see it got serious if Daily Star Wars Games getting involved here. Sony is wanting to be done with it. My stuff comes from Sony. It feels like it cannot happen without a partner like Sony. Sony seemed to be out with the funding pulled. To me, it's definitely done and no reason for anyone to be working on it. The reality is maybe someone somewhere is imagining it could happen and someone could be working on it. I don't know that far. I don't know what's happening inside Embracer. They would have to find someone to make that happen with. And let's be real, looking around, who really wants to run to Embracer right now with a bag full of cash to make a game? Probably no one. Embracer's really struggling right now. They've mentioned laying off 900 plus people. Apparently, they've also canceled 15 or so game projects. So there's a lot of stuff that was being worked on behind the scenes that we'll never know about. Well, okay, maybe somebody eventually comes out and is like, I was working on this game and it could have been really cool, but well, we didn't have the money to do it. So in this case, yes, if Sony really is thinking, well, we're not gonna keep funding this if, we see what's going on in Embracer, we're out. Yeah, that's probably the end then, at least in the current form, for Knights of the Old Republic Remake. Now, Jeff Grubb did mention, well, someone else could come in and help get this game back up and running and hopefully get it to the finish line. And sure, that's possible, especially if Disney and LucasArts, they really want to get this done. They're going to have to look around for someone else outside of Embracer, because right now I think Embracer still has a ways to go. As they said, they're still just going into the next. They just finished phase 1, I believe, of them sort of restructuring the company. They got a whole other phase, at least one more phase to go. So I feel like Time Splitters is probably in the same situation here. Not necessarily that an outside company was funding it, just that Embracer can't fund it themselves right now. So that's just sort of where we are. And it's unfortunate because it would have been really cool to see what could have been with a Knights of the Old Republic remake. Who knows? Maybe you see Microsoft, they could come in and try it, I guess. But the real twist would be if Nintendo came in and made it happen. Or I guess technically you could have an EA, a Ubisoft, really all kinds of other companies could come in and at least throw their hat in the ring if they want to deal with what's going on right now with Embracer, or maybe just go completely around them, go to Disney and say, hey, cut that contract off and we'll take it from here. But I'd like to think that there is a way for this game to come out, but for now, as I said before, I would just consider this game basically canceled, it's dead, and maybe we'll be surprised 6 or 7 years from now when it pops up in another showcase somewhere. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about an interview The Guardian had with the Pokemon Company COO about just the overall state of the franchise with Pokemon, the most recent games, and sort of the path forward, especially with all of the feedback that they've been receiving for Scarlet and Violet. We can see this, though, posted up over on The Guardian after bringing up kind of the situation around Scarlet and Violet and a lot of the backlash around the state of the game with the bugs, the glitches, the poor performance. And they say, regardless of whether we publicly respond, we're always paying very close attention to the feedback and conversations happening in the communities. There are certain aspects where we can't always be 100% aligned with what parts of the community are asking for and what we want to provide, but we do this with the desire to keep Pokemon going for a very long time. And I believe that the fans and players are aligned with us in that respect. So they mentioned trying to keep Pokemon going for like another 100 years or something. Sure, why not? But in this case, yeah, I do think most people out there, gamers who even remember Pokemon from back in the day with Red and Blue, or more recently, would like to see the games just get better. Just in general, just like they don't want the games to just go away completely and like that's it. We'll call it on Pokemon. I feel like if Pokemon came back and the games were really, really good, I feel like most people would be ecstatic. They'd be really, really happy to see that. So that's more or less, I think a lot of the pushback that they get is they make a lot of money off these games. It's not like they come out and they sell 1 million copies and it's like, well, they're trying. They sell 20 to 25 million copies, no sweat, just because the name Pokemon is on there, because well, there are better Pokemon games out there. You could say like Temtem, and it sells nowhere near what Pokemon does. It's just the brand is that strong. So you feel like they would be able to put the time, the resources, everything around it to make top-notch games. Just hasn't really come together for Game Freak, especially transitioning over to the HD era with, well, the Switch now. But even going to like the 3DS, that had some technical issues, so they do need to regroup. And the fact that they are, at least say they are paying attention, they hear a lot of the feedback, to me, you gotta show it. Like, you gotta prove it with actions, and that comes down to the next Pokemon game, because Scarlet and Violet never really got any better with performance. In fact, with some of the recent patches, it's actually gotten worse. Like the DLC, the frame rate went down. We went the wrong way here. So again, we'll see with their next games, their next set of games, because of course they'll do 2 different releases of basically the same game. But when they come out, will they be higher quality? Because Nintendo had to go to their own support page and say that they're going to look into it themselves, and that does still reflect on Nintendo. Pokemon is not solely owned by Nintendo or anything, but their logo's right there next to it. They do a lot of the stuff when it comes to hardware, the publishing. So even Nintendo, you feel like, has to look around and go, okay, we got to get this back on track from a quality standard, especially if you want Pokemon to go on for another 100 or so years in its current state, or probably even better again if you make better games. And before we go to the comments of the day, we're taking a look at Game of the Year Madness Day 3, which pit RoboCop versus humanity, and, well, yeah, the humanity is right, and RoboCop just rolled right over it. I know humanity was a highly rated game this year, but it's RoboCop. What are you gonna do about it? It's, at this point, all 3 wildcards so far have advanced in the standings, and, well, I think it's gonna be a little harder for today's wildcard, that being Assassin's Creed Mirage, as it's going up against Super Mario RPG, which has been a classic in gaming since the Super Nintendo, and, well, we just had a remake that people are getting a kick out of because it's a good game. So might be a little harder this time for something like Assassin's Creed Mirage to take down Super Mario RPG, but outside of that, even if Mario RPG goes over, 3 out of 4 wildcards, that's pretty good, I'd say, for the first round. But then after Mirage and Mario RPG conclude, then the real bracket starts up, and we'll see what happens then. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Gary, who says, if they're giving it out for free, they've got to have something in mind to make money off of it in the long run by getting people's interest back into Half-Life. Logically, right? Yes, I know a lot of people's interest never left. I was looking for the Half-Life 3 hopeful in the comments, and I found that I think in this case, Valve it's a celebration sort of thing, and in this case, like, how much was Half-Life even selling for before? That was at $10 or less. It's just kind of a goodwill thing to do with your fan base, your user base on Steam, that makes you quite a bit of money. Like, Valve makes a lot from people shopping on what's basically the default application on PC at this time. So why not do something fun like that? And sure, they could just play it up as, hey, we're making it so you can just get Half-Life, you can experience it maybe for the first time, or just kickstart some of that nostalgia again, so Half-Life 3 can be shown at the Game Awards. There you go. I'm with you, Half-Life hopefuls. We'll see what happens. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. There's all the holiday sales, whether it's Nintendo with their cyber sales or what we're seeing right now with Gamefly. Which game should people be checking out? And then also, what about Knights of the Old Republic Remake? Seemingly done, canceled, it's over. Do you think some other company could step in and maybe pick it up and get it to the finish line? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.